Executive summary. Through this literature review, palm cooling has repeatedly shown to enhance performance after reviewing 32 studies, which will all be referenced here in this module. 21 of the studies reported positive outcomes on endurance, fatigue mitigation, and or strength capacity. 11 studies showed neutral results. Neutral being that there were no negative outcomes. All there was a null effect in which the performance or ergogenic benefit of palm cooling was not showed. However, upon further inspection, many, if not all of these studies had some issues in study design on the basis of physics and physiology. We are going to go into that in section 9.3. And importantly, 0 studies showed negative results. There was low cost, 0 risk intervention, no negative side effects or consequences of any studies that have shown or that have reviewed palm cooling. Big takeaway is that physics and physiology are non-negotiable. The physics of heat transfer are undeniable, and that's the basis of the zero law. The physiology of thermoregulation is undeniable and extraordinarily well documented and researched over the last century. And palm cooling specifically in the last couple of decades has repeatedly showed efficacy for ergogenic benefits in heat stress state. Now, an important note is that a study that shows neutral outcomes does not mean palm cooling does not work. What it means is that it did not work for that specific hypothesis in that specific study design and implementation. And those are very, very important points that we are going to explore. You can think of palm cooling like an umbrella. It works, but not if you open it indoors or when it's sunny, or if you hold it sideways during a downpour. You can't hold an umbrella in the sun and say it was ineffective at keeping me dry versus the control of having no umbrella when there is no rain to prevent it from or to protect you from. So poor implementation doesn't disprove effectiveness. It's a misuse of the tool. It just proves that it does not work in that specific context. So it's very important to understand how palm cooling works. It works by augmenting thermoregulation. So you need to understand the mechanisms of thermoregulation. You also need to understand the mechanisms behind fatigue and impaired performance in a state of thermal stress. So if you're not in a state of thermal stress, you can't expect cooling to help augment performance. That's the real idea. So some common design flaws in the neutral results that we found is very, very frequently subjects were tested who were not heat stressed. So there really wasn't prevalence of heat stress, and therefore cooling wouldn't have an ergogenic effect. There was also insufficient cooling interfaces that really didn't have any appropriate design or implementation. There were non-fatiguing tasks, or it was just misapplied timing or duration. And we're going to go into that on a few selected studies, as well as some quick notes on the rest of them. Key takeaways for the executive summary here in Module 9, the literature review of palm cooling, is that it is effective, but context and execution matter. It is not a magic pill. So that's important. I will not tell you that palm cooling is a magic pill and guaranteed to enhance performance. It is like a screwdriver, not a hammer. You must use it where the screw exists, and it must have the right head, whether that be a Phillips or whatever. So it is best applied in heat-stressed fatigue states, not just arbitrarily in any exercise condition. And finally, neutral results are not disproof of palm cooling. However, they're actually proof that it does work under the right context, and that it is even more important to understand the underlying mechanism and physiology. And that's what the zeroth law is all about.